Good morning. The chime of the bell beckons us into a sacred time. Welcome to the First Unitarian Universalist Church of Houston, where we widen love's circle by honoring the inherent worth and dignity of all, and by encouraging one another in our spiritual growth. We extend a heartfelt and inclusive invitation to join us in meaningful worship and in service to the world. We greet all those who join us this morning, those in our sanctuary, all of our many online viewers, así como el creciente número de participantes bilingües que nos acompañan desde sus hogares. We hope those watching the live stream will fill out the online attendance form, and those here in person will take a moment to introduce yourselves to someone you don't know yet. Now, please join Dr. Rock in the sanctuary choir for our first hymnal.
Good morning. I invite you all to open your hymnals, the gray ones, to number 273, Immortal, Invisible. Please rise in body and or in spirit and join together in song.
Please be seated. Today, I share these words by my colleague, Nathan Ryan. Be it real or metaphor, whatever is in your backpack or your briefcase or your purse that you've brought into this sanctuary that is weighing you down, leave it behind. Whatever you are carrying that is keeping you distracted or caught up in shame, guilt, or hopelessness, leave it behind. If you need it, it will be there when we're done. But for just this 1 hour, let it go. Come into this place with open hearts. Come into this place with a soul that has remembered how to be tender again. Come into this place with a renewed hope for this world. Come into this place ready to build a world we've always been worthy of and have always dreamed of.
Join me in saying the words found in your order of service for the Congregational Covenant. Love is the spirit of our congregation. Service is our prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek truth in love, and to encourage one another. Thus do we covenant.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Joe Lack, and I'm a member of the auction planning team. Hopefully by now you've heard about the auction, and this year's theme is Reaching for the Stars, because as a community, that's what we do. The online or silent auction started last night and runs for a week till next Saturday. Those who have participated in the auction in previous years will be familiar with the website because it's the same. For those of you new, you should have received an email from the church that gives you the website address. No worries, if you need help finding the website or how to log on, see the table in Channing Hall, and we're willing to give you information and help. The main event is the live auction and party, which is next Saturday, February 24th, starting at 6 p.m. It's a great event. It's a lot of fun. We have dinner, we have drinks, desserts, and we have entertainment. And then the evening culminates with the live auction in the sanctuary. And we have our own one and only auctioneer, Earl Dredge, who's here today to tell you a little bit about the live auction.
Good morning, everyone. I'm glad to be here, and I hope you are too. And I hope you're very excited about the live auction along with the party that's coming up this coming Saturday. We have several different items that are going to be in the live auction. And one that I think a lot of you might be interested in is a week stay in San Miguel de Allende in the mountains in Mexico. So if you're going this summer, why, it'll be nice and cool there compared to what we have here in Houston anyway. So that's one that I think you might be interested in. I'd like to kind of give you a little example of how we might run that. So let's say we start with a $500 bid. All right? Okay, who's going to give me an opening bid of $500? Thank you. Opening bid $500. Anybody give me $550? Anybody give me $550? You got me $550? I got $550. Anybody give me $600? Anybody give me $600? I got $600. Anybody give me $650? Anybody give me $650? I got $650. $700. Who'll give me $700? Anybody give me $700? $700 over there. Okay. $750. Who'll give me $750? Let's go that way. Okay, $750 on that side. $800. Anybody? $800. $800 over there. That's the way to bid. That's what we want. $850. Anybody give me $850? Got $850? Any got me $900? $900. $900. $900. $900 going once. $900 going twice. Sold. $900.
Thank you, Earl, for that rousing live auction example. It's a lot of fun, so please join us next Saturday on the 24th. Just so you know, the auction includes many wonderful things. There's beautiful art, there's poetry books, there's dinners hosted by members, there's tickets to the Alley Theater, to the Houston Symphony, to the Ensemble Theater, to the Hobby Center, and more. So there's many things to be interested to buy. So please support the auction. Come out online this week and bid things up, and hope to see you next Saturday, the 24th, for the big party. Thank you.
Hallelujah.
Thank you so much. That was just lovely. This is the time when the young folks head out to do some really cool other things while we're in here doing other cool things. So we want them to know how loved they are and what an important part of this church they are. And the adults are going to sing you out. If you grab your order of service, inside you'll find the words to As You Go as they head out with John and Colette. Also, I usually try to remember to give a shout out to the choir because they leave at this point because they sing at both services. So we appreciate their efforts by all means. Today, I invite you to settle into a comfortable place and calm your breathing as I share That Which Holds All by Nancy Schaffer. Because she wanted everyone to feel included in her prayer, she said right at the beginning several names for the holy. Spirit, she said, Holy One, Mystery, God. But then, thinking these weren't enough ways of addressing that which cannot be fully addressed, she added particularities, saying, Spirit of life, Spirit of love, Ancient Holy One, mystery we will not ever fully know, gracious God, and also Spirit of this earth, God of Sarah, Gaia, Thou. And then, tongue loosened, she fell to naming superlatives as well. Most creative one, greatest source, closest hope. Even though superlatives for the sacred seemed to her probably redundant, but then she couldn't stop. One who made the stars, she said. Although she knew technically a number of those present didn't believe the stars had been made by anyone or thing, but just luckily happened. One who is an entire ocean of compassion, she said, and no one laughed. That which has been present since before the beginning, she said, and the room was silent. Then, although she hadn't imagined it this way, others began to offer names. Peace, said one. One my mother knew, said another. Ancestor, said a third. Wind, rain, breath, said one near the back. Refuge, that which holds all. A child said water. Someone said Kuan Yin, then womb. Witness, great kindness, great eagle, eternal stillness. And then there wasn't any need to say the things she thought would be important to say. And everyone sat hushed until someone said, Amen. We pause now together to lift up that which sits light and heavy on our hearts. Becky Moore's youngest sister, Eleanor V. Starling, passed away. We hold Becky, Eleanor's husband Bill, and their entire family in love during a difficult time. Reverend Jan Eller Isaacs passed away Wednesday morning after a long, courageous battle with cancer. She entered hospice Saturday, February 3rd, a day before her 71st birthday. We just received a word that Reverend Dr. Robert Tucker passed away in October. Reverend Tucker briefly served the congregation in a ministerial capacity in 2008 when First Unitarian Universalist was without senior clergy. The ministers are currently planning a memory circle, date to be announced. Then from the book we place at the back in order for you to be able to write in as you enter. One person writes that they thank God for keeping me alive. Celebrating the long-hoped-for arrival of Nathaniel Robert Johnson, adopted by B.J. Johnson, a friend of Ruth Hoffman Locke. Harold Rudd, longtime leader of the UU Fellowship of Houston, fell from a ladder while working at the church, is hospitalized due to a spinal cord injury. So obviously we want to keep all these people close to our heart. We now turn to a practice inspired by African, indigenous, and pagan traditions. We say aloud or bring to mind those who we wish to be held by the loving embrace of this religious community. They are part of the great cloud of witness and memory, and we will, even if we do not know their names, hold them in our hearts. In this great cloud of witness and memory, amid this beloved community, we hear these names and hold them in our hearts. Let us remember the suffering and joy amid and among our community that we do not know. Each week at this juncture, we enter into a time of silence, a time when we pause in awe and wonder of the beauty, diversity, and mystery that is life. In the spirit of love, in the spirit of hope, and in the spirit of compassion, I now invite each one of you to enter into a time of silent prayer, meditation, or reflection.
Each week, our morning offering is shared with an organization that shares our Unitarian Universalist values and through which we may live out our principles in the world. Today, our shared offering will help support the Center for the Healing of Racism, a Houston-based organization founded in 1989. With the avowed purpose of healing racism, the Center established goals that would guide this achievement. These goals include creating a safe environment in which to explore the issues of racism and its social, emotional, and spiritual repercussions, and to make available educational opportunities for people of all ages to obtain accurate information about the history and rich heritage of people of color. Those in our sanctuary will find the instructions for text giving in the order of service next to the name of the shared offering recipient, and those watching the live stream will see the instructions on your screen. Our regular Sunday morning offering collection invites us to weave a tapestry of love and action. We ask you to give generously. An offering will now be gratefully received.
Please join with me in saying the dedication to the offering, which can be found in the order of service. To the work of this church, which is weaving a tapestry of love and action, we dedicate our lives and these our offerings.
Our first reading is an excerpt from A History of God, The 4,000-Year Quest of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam by Karen Armstrong. A personalized God can be a mere idol carved in our own image, a projection of our limited needs, fears, and desires. We can assume that he loves what we love and hates what we hate, endorsing our prejudices instead of compelling us to transcend them. When he seems to fail to prevent a catastrophe or seems even to desire a tragedy, he can seem callous and cruel. A facile belief that a disaster is the will of God can make us accept things that are fundamentally unacceptable. The very fact, as a person, God has a gender is also limiting. It means that the sexuality of half the human race is sacralized at the expense of the female and can lead to neurotic and inadequate imbalance in the human sexual mores. A personal God can be dangerous, therefore, instead of pulling us beyond our limitations, he can encourage us to remain complacently within them. He can make us cruel, callous, self-satisfied, and partial as he seems to be. Instead of inspiring us the compassion that should be characterized all advanced religions, he can encourage us to judge, condemn, and marginalize. Here ends the first reading.
The The second reading is an excerpt from the article Pancakes and Process Theology by the Reverend Elizabeth Stevens. In process theology, God, or the spirit of life, or the creative spirit, or goodness, or love, insert whatever word works for you, God works like the scent of pancakes in the morning, to awaken longings deep in the heart, luring not just people, but all of creation forward in a continually unfolding process of growing and becoming. Perhaps the simplest way to access process theology is to embrace the notion that we are all part of a universe of free choosers, a universe that is in the process of becoming what the participants in the universe are choosing to become. In a very fundamental way, we are our choices. Our choices define us, and they also define and determine what the universe becomes. We are co-creators with the universe. So, where does God fit in? God, then, is what keeps pulling the universe forward, pulling it toward life and love and peace and connection, keeping it from descending into entropy, stagnation, and collapse. The God of process theology isn't in charge. In a universe of free choosers, God can't make anyone or anything do anything, but God pulls on the heartstrings and activates deeper, life-giving, and love-filled longings. The God of process theology doesn't make rules. Morally, God is ambiguous. As for the end of the process, God doesn't know how it's all going to turn out. God is not all-knowing. God hopes and lures and loves, but God is in the thick of it just like the rest of us. God is powerful and essential to the continuance of life, and God is helpless to actually concretely do much of anything beyond luring the universe toward wholeness, toward ultimate goodness, toward unconditional love. Here ends the second reading.
Please open up your hymnals, the gray ones, to number 8. You don't have to turn a lot of pages. Just to number 8, and rise in body or spirit as we sing Mother, Spirit, Father, Spirit.
Mother Spirit, Father Spirit, where are you? In the sky song, in the forest, sounds your cry? What to give you? What to call you? What am I? Who we are and what we call God are very much linked. And there are innumerable metaphors for God. By many accounts, God is not only indescribable, but well beyond our comprehension. Humans can't even agree on one name for God or whether that ineffable entity even exists. So, coming up with a singular metaphor for something beyond our comprehension, whose very existence we don't understand, is nearly impossible. So I've chosen that topic for today. I decided to return to this topic that I briefly addressed in my last sermon. I described witnessing firsthand how comforting certain belief structures were for members of my hometown and my family during times of grief and mourning, 2 family memorial services. I realized how much those rituals and metaphors are a part of a culture, mainly because I could see that they worked for them, while others now resonate for me. Deciding to investigate metaphor, I found an online article from the NIH National Library of Medicine written by Adam F. Fetterman, a psychology professor at the University of Houston. It's titled, "What Shall We Call God? An Exploration of Metaphors Coded from Descriptions of God from a Large U.S. Undergraduate Sample." You may have read it. In the article, he reasoned that if we know a person's conceptualization of God's character, we can predict important psychological outcomes. Not surprisingly, there are strong correlations between what people believe and what they think God believes. God created in our own image, so to speak. Of course, this isn't earth-shattering news. Well over a century ago, Susan B. Anthony said, "I distrust those people who know so well what God wants them to do because it always coincides with their own desires." Because God is beyond our understanding, any conceptualization must be metaphoric. However, as humans, we are limited in our ability to comprehend such non-natural entities and must conceptualize God within our physical boundaries. We are limited by the difficulty of thinking past our bodies and experiences, and so must liken God to things based on our physical experiences. So we have metaphor. Visualizing God based on our own experiences reminded me of the scene in the 1995 movie Jeffrey. Father Dan, played by Nathan Lane, is describing God to the title character. He says, "First, here's how you see God. He's a Columbia recording artist." Jeffrey says, "What?" Father Dan says, "You got your idea from God where most gay kids get it. The album cover of My Fair Lady. Original cast. It's got the Hirschfeld caricature of George Bernard Shaw up in the clouds manipulating Rex Harrison and Julie Andrews on strings, like marionettes. It was your parents' album, you were little, you thought it was a picture of God, as I believe did Shaw, right?" Jeffrey, surprised, says, "Yeah." As a child, my concept of God was strikingly similar. In fact, except for the fact that it was my grandparents' album, not my parents', this is precisely my story. And it was verified by images of the grandfatherly white man with a beard described in Sunday school, and a famous painting on a ceiling by Michelangelo. So perhaps even gay culture has its own metaphors and images of the Almighty. When I was in seminary, most other students were Protestant, and so by extension Trinitarian. When writing papers, I would make the case that it didn't make sense to say God was three in one when God can't really be accurately described at all, at least by humans. I said it may be a great metaphor, but it was no more than a metaphor. No less a thinker than Thomas Jefferson called it the incomprehensible jargon of the Trinitarian arithmetic, that three are one and one is three. Now, I tried to Google Trinity as metaphor this week to back up my and Thomas's assertion, and the best I could do was find people describing good and bad analogies for the Holy Trinity. Many now seem to just take it as fact. That's how God is. Of course, this is precisely where our theological ancestors ran up against the powers that be, from the Council of Nicaea to Michael Servetus being burned at the stake with a copy of his book on the errors of the Trinity chained to his leg. As I've indicated, I have gravitated to a less concrete metaphor for God. Not only do I not subscribe to a three-in-one metaphor, I'm not crazy about a few other attributes people unquestioningly believe describe God. I don't believe God is omnipotent, infinite in power, or omniscient, all-knowing. God isn't all-knowing in process theology, which our second reading gave a user-friendly introduction to, which kind of blows a hole in that whole Calvinism and predestination thing that early Unitarians railed against. Because we are free to choose, here and now, God doesn't know in advance what will happen. But, as Reverend Stevens said, in a universe of free choosers, God can't make anyone or anything do anything. But God pulls on the heartstrings and activates deeper, life-giving, and love-filled longings. God is what keeps pulling the universe forward, pulling it toward life and love and peace and connection. God hopes and lures and loves. I've come to prefer a far from concrete, benevolent partner than a concrete George Bernard Shaw doppelganger. But despite being staunchly Unitarian, I was somehow asked to read and reflect upon the document Theology and the People by Pope Francis for the Metropolitan Organization Leadership Retreat last weekend. I was struck by how some of the themes resonated with those of my last sermon. In one passage it read, "And one cannot understand people without taking into account their culture. And for a church to speak to and respond to a people, it must be in the midst of those people and their culture, discerning its liberating action from those people and their interests." Now, the Pope's incentive to describe the importance of understanding others' cultures stemmed from his desire for others to connect to the poor, their popular culture, and their ethos. He wrote, "Understanding the poor as the people means discovering and recognizing that they are bearers of a cultural ethos of their own, whose religious soul or heart always wagers on hope. He lifts up what he sees as the values of the poor, a spontaneous attention to the other, and ability to devote time to others and go to another's aid without calculating time or sacrifice," which strikes me as very different from prosperity gospel. At the leadership retreat, I reiterated the importance of listening to and gaining the input and helping to empower those one is trying to help. In one seminary class, we were given a hypothetical scenario where we were given a problem and asked to describe how we would guide our congregations to address it. Our group scenario involved a poor community who found the city was going to build a trash incinerator right next to them, because, of course, the wealthier folks made sure it wasn't being built in their neighborhoods. We came up with lots of good ideas about how to address the issue. The one other UU in our group was insistent we talk to the people in the neighborhood, find out how they would like to fight it, and help empower them to do so. Our group, like many well-meaning people, had fallen into that trap of thinking we knew best what would work for others without asking them. Now, I'm sure I took the idea of accepting different cultures further than the Pope intended. I imagine he envisioned learning about the cultural ethos of others as learning how their culture uniquely practices Christianity and supporting them in that, while I'm less likely to put such parameters on how others approach finding meaning or how they ask the deep questions of life. I've talked many times about Bishop Carlton Pearson in my sermons because his metaphor for God changed radically. His life changed radically. A wildly popular evangelical pastor, he realized the judgmental God, laser-focused on sin and salvation, didn't work for him anymore. He believed in a loving God and that all humans are already saved. He found himself accused of heresy and lost his ministry. Now, were Bishop Pearson in a bizarro world where everything is opposite, it might be the story of Russell Moore. He was a devout Baptist, ostracized for attempting to hold his church to their professed beliefs. As you can imagine, it has changed his life as well. You may have heard the interview on NPR in August with Moore, the editor-in-chief of Christianity Today magazine. He was talking about his book, Losing Our Religion, an altar call for evangelical America. He was a top official in the Southern Baptist Convention until publicly criticizing Donald Trump, the convention's response to a sexual abuse crisis, and to what he viewed as an increased tolerance for white nationalism within the church. He resigned and found himself outside the denomination that had essentially defined his life. Moore described why he thinks Christianity is in crisis. Well, it was the result of having multiple pastors tell me essentially the same story about quoting the Sermon on the Mount parenthetically in their preaching, turn the other cheek, to have someone come up after and say, "Where did you get those liberal talking points?" And what was alarming to me is that in most of these scenarios, when the pastor would say, "I'm literally quoting Jesus Christ," the response would not be, "I apologize." The response would be, "Yes, but that doesn't work anymore. That's weak." Moore continued, "And when we get to the point where the teachings of Jesus himself are seen as subversive to Christians, then we're in a crisis. Because how one's culture views their metaphors for God guides their perceptions. It guides their actions. And how we come to understand the world can lead us to modify our metaphor to fit. Are we looking for meaning in places that will grow our spiritual lives and our compassion for others? Just this morning, literally, on social media, I saw this quote by Joseph Campbell. "If you want to change the world, you have to change the metaphor." Now, back to Professor Fetterman's online article. Because the study respondents consisted almost entirely of Christian participants in the U.S., it is difficult to make broad conclusions or to generalize to universal God concepts. Also, it may explain the high number of concrete anthropomorphic metaphors, as opposed to the less concrete images used in Eastern religions. Of course, UUs are also likely to use less concrete metaphors, like, for instance, the scent of pancakes in the morning, an image that I love. William Ellery Channing said, "God is another name for human intelligence, raised above all error and imperfection and extended to all possible truth." I'm still trying to figure out what to do with that. The thing that struck me most about the article were the results of a study that looked at those who use more concrete metaphors, such as envisioning God as a kindly old man, as opposed to those who use more abstract concepts like God is love. It's true, Fetterman points out, that God is love is the mapping of an abstract concept, God, with another relatively abstract concept, love. But because love, and for that matter, the smell of pancakes, are relatively more concrete than God, most people have firsthand experience with love and pancakes that they can use to ground a God concept. But because the purpose of metaphors is to provide meaning to relatively abstract concepts by making them more concrete, less concrete metaphors seem to provide less meaning to abstract concepts. So the more concrete the metaphor, the more meaning might be derived from it. So, when people try to find the meaning of God or meaning of life through God, if they use a less concrete metaphor, they will derive less meaning from that metaphor. But those who need less meaning from a God metaphor may very well find meaning from other things, like relationships or family. When I witnessed my family seemingly finding more meaning in the rituals uplifting their metaphors of God in heaven, it was apparently because their metaphors are more concrete than mine. A kindly, human-looking God, with my mom at one side and my brother on the other, is far more comforting as my father breathed his last than the metaphor of the scent of pancakes in the morning. There is much to consider when exploring metaphor. Being non-creedal, we aren't concerned with how or if you find meaning through a metaphor for God, or choose to look elsewhere, unless you'd like us to join you as you search to find what works for you. Because finding meaning, exploring that spiritual aspect of ourselves, is the heartbeat of what we do here. I really think it boils down to these two sentences from Karen Armstrong's The Spiral Staircase, My Climb Out of Darkness. If your understanding of the divine made you kinder, more empathetic, and impelled you to express sympathy in concrete acts of loving kindness, this was good theology. But if your notion of God made you unkind, belligerent, cruel, or self-righteous, or if it led you to kill in God's name, it was bad theology. Amen, and so be it.
Now I invite you to open your hymnals to number 29, Joyful, Joyful, We Adore Thee. Please rise in body or spirit and join with me in song.
Heart
Please join me in saying the words to extinguish the chalice found in your order of service. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
May your understanding of the divine and that which gives you meaning in life lead you to be kinder, more empathetic, and impel you to express sympathy in concrete acts of loving kindness. Go in peace and have a blessed week.
Thank you for joining us. We want to know who you are and would love to connect with you. Please fill out the link to the online attendance form, and if you are on YouTube, click like and subscribe. If you're interested in joining our congregation, email us at membership@firstuuhouston.org. Thanks so much.